Welcome to my YouTube channel where we demonstrate and discuss everything related to theatrical and entertainment production crafts. Please subscribe to get the latest updates, posts, and demonstrations. While I will focus primarily on safety in the shops and comprehensive training and operating procedures for tools and machinery, I'll also demonstrate and discuss practical applications like flat and platform construction, scene painting, and more. If you'd like to see something specific, please let me know in the comments. Once again, please subscribe and power up the alert bell to get the most up-to-date notifications about new content. I'm going to be repainting this brickwork to actually look like brickwork as opposed to graffitied brickwork. There is some semblance of brick poking through here and there. But because it's been spray painted, if I just try to go straight in and do my brick painting technique, this spray paint is probably going to bleed through the first several layers and it's going to still be visible. So if I want that to go away, I need to put in a primer coat of some sort of sealer, coverall type of thing and wipe it out and try to cover it up. But ideally something that has a property where it doesn't allow things to bleed through, and that should cover it up and prevent the future bleed through. We tend not to do spray paint, as in cans of spray paint, on scenery that we're going to reuse in theater because of that factor. The spray paint will continue to bleed through. It not only will bleed through because of its different textures, but sometimes spray paint is put on pretty heavily and it'll have an actual ridge that you can see, and that ridge will continue to bleed through even though it's completely covered up in paint. I tend to think of spray painting a flat as kind of using it the last time. When we get to the point where we need to spray paint something, it's a done deal. It gets spray painted. It's thrown away after that show. Primer coat, if I really want to seal this in. And then after I've done my primer coat, I'd be priming either because it was raw material or because I'm trying to cover up this previous paint job and trying to start out with a neutral surface. Then the base coat is your first layer of color that is heading you in the direction of where you want to go. This is going to be brickwork, so my first layer of color needs to be a warm, a brown, or a brick red, or something like that. Probably some junk paint. I can probably find some junk paint that is within the range of colors that will be brick, and I can use up some of my junk paint, and then I can start after that is base coated with my warm brick, brown, whatever color I use. Then I can get to painting. We're going to base coat these bricks. I've mixed up a bunch of junk paint. It's just brown, reddish brown. And I'm using up old paint, leftover mixed paints from previous shows, things that we're no longer going to use or will dry up and be unusable if I don't use them. This is what I call junk paint. I usually mix junk paint at the end of a show or at the end of a season, and we'll mix stuff to mix up a cool, a warm, and maybe a gray. We'll just sort of throw the stuff in that's leftovers. And we're going to roll it on. I have this heavy nap roller. Let me see how much this gets into the grooves. This is pretty deep brickwork, so I'm probably not going to get into the grooves with it. But we'll see. I'll probably have to come back and brush in every single one of those. Yeah. But it is getting some paint in there. And we can see this paint is beating up on our spray paint. And that's not good. That's not good at all. I think I'm going to have to do a primer coat. Right. That's the spray paint. That's what happens when you spray paint things. Okay, we're going to try this again. Second shot. This is the only primer and sealer that I've got in the back. This should work. Not every white is a primer. So if you're trying to cover up something like this, you need to get a paint that's going to actually do the right kind of cover up and not let these things bleed through. The Z Prime should do. In some cases, white can be a primer, but in this case, we need a proper primer. If you're just using white as a source to get to a sort of a bottom level to build up paint from, and you've got all water-based latex acrylic paints on it, then you can probably use white as a primer. If you've got any sort of oils or other things that are going to seep through, you either need to clean those things off first, and or you need to use a proper primer like this Z Prime. Let's see what happens. This is why I don't like spray paint. Yeah, it looks like it's going to seal it in just fine. Okay, this is good, but it's going to add an extra step. I'm not using the roller that this doesn't have a very big nap like the other one, so it's not going to get into all the cracks. I will have to come back and use a brush for that. And it's actually okay with this if I go over my brown. And actually this is starting to bead up on the spray paint as well. Not good. I might have to do 2 coats of this. We shall see. I'm just letting it blend with the wet brown. It's not going to affect the final product. Maybe the brush stroke will get it to adhere and stop beating up, whereas the roller isn't really getting into the surface and grain of the brickwork. This particular brickwork is from a shop in North Hollywood. It's recycled cardboard and paper products, and they form it into bricks. It's a little more expensive than say the masonite paneling you might be able to get at some Home Depots or Lowe's or other lumber yards, but it looks so much better because it's got the proper 3 dimensions that you would expect from real brick. You can also get them to scenically print your design onto some of their products. Movies use their products a lot. I've also made bricks by cutting out a bunch of Celotex or Homosote, the size of my bricks, painting them, pre-painting them, applying them one at a time, some sanding of each little individual brick. That's also an effective and realistic solution, although fairly time-consuming. But for the cost of materials, it's a lot cheaper than this. We're going to let this brickwork dry. It's still beating up on the spray paint a bit, but there's not much I can do, and I'm going to have to work with it. I think I've got enough of it generally sealed, some splotches here, and I'm just going to have to somehow make it work. So we can paint brick like this. And when I approach brick that's three-dimensional, if I'm painting a brick wall that already exists, and I'm trying to make it look like brick, because in our arena theater we have a brick wall that sometimes gets painted black, and then we need to paint it brick again. So it's already brick, but it's been painted, so we need to make it look like real brick again. When it's three-dimensional, I tend to do all of the messy brick texture, which are all of these individual bricks. And I tend to do that with a sponge coat, some sort of scumbling, and making it random and irregular. And then I come back in with a brush and I do the mortar. We can also do brick with a stencil. And in this case, if I'm going to do the stencil, I want to paint my entire surface of my material. I want to paint this the mortar first. So this should be my gray or whatever color my mortar is. Mostly mortar is going to be gray. It's very rare that the mortar is dark. It's usually a concrete or similar type of mixture, and those are usually gray. Sometimes there's reddish mortars and they're tinted. They're very rarely going to be darker than your brick unless someone has painted them. So if we're going for realistic brick look, we probably should go with a gray kind of mortar.